this. Okay, today's speaker is Julie Lenner, and she is an expert certified by CELTA, Delta, and CLIL. She's a trainer for them. And we were just talking about, she's very international by training and by experience. She has been an active teacher and trainer on 2 continents. She especially focuses on innovating, experimenting with course design, schedule, teaching, practice delivery, and trainee group social dynamics with these teacher training courses. Okay, she lives in Bucharest, and now she travels online and offline. She's with us today online, and she delivers bespoke training courses and conferences in Europe and Asia. Okay, Julie, welcome. We're so happy to have you here, and the floor is all yours. Or I should say the cloud is all yours.
Yours. Yeah, dancing on a cloud. All right. Thank you very much, Anne, for the nice words and for the warm welcome. And it's great to see such an international audience here. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me on this Saturday morning. All right. Well, let's get this party started. As you well know, today we're going to talk about something that I am very passionate about, and that is context versus topic in communicative language teaching. Because I feel like this is a change and a shift that's been more prominent in ELT and CLT in the last couple of years, as we are beginning to understand more of what makes a truly communicative English lesson. So let's get started. As Anne has introduced me, my name is Julie, and I'm a Cambridge teacher trainer. That is not all I am. I am also these 2 things over here as well. So these 2, number 2 and number 3, represent things about me. Now, I thought it would be nice if over to you in the chat box, what do you think these 2 pictures, number 2 and number 3, represent about me? Please, the floor is yours. The chat box is yours. What do you think number 2 and number 3 represent about me? Any ideas? Take a minute to think about it. All right. Spreading light moves in a flash from too much Coke. Close, close, very close. Oh, that's lovely, Abir. Thank you very much. Light in the darkness. Excellent. Shining, the light of knowledge. All right. Okay, well, pretty close, guys, pretty close. Reaching out. Too quick and fast. Yes, I do tend to bring a lot of energy to my training. Peppy like all soda. Absolutely, absolutely. Excellent. All right. Yes, it is all about the energy. Part of what I do in my training sessions is the following. I would describe myself as a training energizer. I think that training doesn't have to be, monotone and boring. And I like to get my people involved, my audience involved as much as possible in doing the tasks and learning from each other. And I hope that I will be able to transfer this energy to you as well today. And as you all have guessed, I am a Coca-Cola enthusiast. I am trying to cut down on my consumption of Coca-Cola, but not been very, very, very successful with that. But yes, you will see me in training or in webinars or in seminars or where I'm doing online or offline. Usually there's a can of Coke somewhere nearby. All right. Well, thank you very much for your guesses. Yeah, Hera, we have our Coca-Cola people here. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. And my mission in general is to create better teaching experiences. I think that as a teacher trainer, I'm looking more at the teaching side of the equation, and I believe that by better teaching, we will be fostering better learning. And that has been my mission as a teacher trainer. Right. Well, our itinerary today is the following. I'm trying to keep it very, very simple. And first, we will talk about context, and we will try to find the difference between context and topic. Then I would like us to explore and investigate how context is important in communication, in helping our students develop communicative competence. So we will be looking at the link between context and communication. And finally, I would like us to have a look at how context is dealt with in course books, because you will see that course books are one of our, the best tool in our toolbox, but they also sometimes stop us from truly exploiting the purposes of context. So these are my three pit stops today: context versus topic, context and communication, and how course books deal with that and how they could do a better job. So let's get started. One thing to keep in mind, all of the materials that I'm using in this webinar are taken from a course book, which I love quite a lot. This is Life Pre-Intermediate student's book. This is the first edition. The Life series, if you're familiar with it, I love it because it is so visually engaging. The tasks are excellent, but it's not so good that it limits my creativity. So I always like a book that is good, but not so good that I can't fiddle with it. So we'll be looking at all of the tasks are taken from this book. Right. So over to you guys. What do you think in a lesson? What would be the difference between the topic and the content, so the topic of the lesson and the context in the lesson? What do you think the difference is? Love to hear it in the chat box, please. Take a minute to think. What would be the difference? Okay. Subject matter versus usage, okay. Topic is part of a context, yes. Interesting, I've never thought about it that way, but it's actually a very good point, thank you. Topic is more general, general versus specific. People, places, reasons of engagement, objectives, yes. Would that be the topic or would that be the context? Context, yes, thank you. Topic related to the title, context is details. So I'm seeing a trend here. Topic is something more general, context is something a little bit more specific. Topic is a brief idea of the context. Yes. Okay. Main idea. Context is about the details. Yes. Oh, I love this from Sertal. Context gives the topic life and meaning. Yes. Context is meaningful. Good. Good. I'm loving this. Excellent. Well, you guys are right. When we're talking about the topic of the lesson, this is usually described in one word. And if you are using course books, like most of us are, the topic will usually be at the beginning of the of the unit. It will be the name of the unit. Here are some topics, things like health, competitions, transport. So topic is usually one word only. It describes an area of interest that is being dealt with in any particular lesson. So, and it's usually associated to the name of the unit: health, competitions, transport, fashion, and so on. Whereas the context is a real life situation that might occur in a given topic. And again, my question to you is, what would be a context for each of these topics? I'm going to do the first one for you. So in health, with health the topic, a context or a real life situation would us be going to the doctor, for example, describing our symptoms to a doctor, and you know, asking for some advice. That would be a real life situation in which within the topic of health. What about competitions and transport? What would be a context for each of these topics? Someone saying Olympics. Okay, good. But remember, try to be even more specific, because Olympics is just another topic, one word. What would we be doing with Olympics? What's actually happening? I think someone earlier mentioned, you know, the people, the place, the what's happening there. Very good. So reporting on a competition. Excellent. That is a context. Participating in a competition. Think about it also linguistically. Are we talking about signing up, convincing someone to come join a competition or a marathon? Different types of activities to stay healthy. Yes, and when would we talk about different types of activities to stay healthy? Is it something, an informal conversation with a friend? Or we're trying to convince someone to go on a diet? TV discussion of the results, very good. You're part of the people on television. So as you can see, the shift from topic to context is in really thinking what, when, who, where, who is participating, what are we doing, what's the outcome. I'm going to share with you some of the contexts that we used that my students used. So for example, health was about describing symptoms, going to a doctor and describing the symptoms that they had. For competitions, it would be deciding on a winner. We had a panel of judges, and they decided on a winner. Transport, we had a debate about city cycle lanes, whether we should have more cycle lanes in the city or not. So as you can see, we are moving from, you know, one word description, health, competition, transport, into actual situations that have an outcome. What's the outcome of describing your symptoms? Well, you want to get some advice. You want the doctor to write you a prescription. What's the outcome of deciding on a winner? Well, we will have a winner and we will have agreed. What's the outcome in taking part in a debate about city cycle lanes? We will have made a decision about that. And this shift from topic, just talking about things, and context, talking about things in a real life situation, replicating that in the lesson is very, very important. Now, you may ask yourself, why is this important? Why is context important and more important than the topic? Well, there are many reasons, but I would like to focus on 3 of them. Number one, it makes the lessons relevant to the learner needs outside of the classroom. Because one thing that we have to remember is that we are not teaching linguists. We are teaching people who have to take the language and use it in the real world. So the more we try to replicate real life situations, real life contexts within our lessons, more meaningful it will be for the learners. Then it makes the lessons more memorable and encourages retention. There are quite a few number of studies that show that students retain the context more than, retain the language more when it is presented in a familiar or a meaningful context than when it is presented sort of in abstract. Learners will not remember, oh, remember that lesson when we did the present perfect. They will remember, oh, remember that lesson when we talked about what kind of questions you can ask at an interview, or how you can present yourself at an interview. So they will remember the context and by association, the language, rather than when we say, okay, today we're going to talk about the present perfect, or today we're going to talk about the past simple, or whatever your grammar or lexical item is. And they will be able to retain and use this language more. And also, and I think this is very important, it shifts the focus from language as an object of study. You know, it shifts the focus from language as a series of discrete items. Today we learned how to, I don't know, a grammar item, or we learned lexis, or we learned how to read. We developed our reading skills, we developed our speaking skills. That is treating language as an object of study. But the focus should be on treating language as means to communicate. Yes, we taught the present perfect, but when in real life will my students be able to use the present perfect? What is the context for that? So it should be not today we're teaching the present perfect, but today we're teaching the present perfect to help people do better at interviews, for example, when you have to talk about your experiences. This is the underlying shift and the change that is becoming more and more prevalent in modern communicative language teaching. Yeah. So, yes, and I'm looking at the chat box to see if there are any comments. And yes, topics can be negotiated in the classroom for a student by a teacher. Absolutely. And depending on how much freedom you have over the syllabus, especially if you're teaching one-to-one, topics can be negotiated, but also contexts can be negotiated. And you can make a decision on what the context is, or what the contexts that are more relevant to the students are. Right, well, the only way we can kind of do better at finding out how to make this shift is by doing some practice. So I'm going to invite you to do the following. So we are, as I said before, we are moving to treating language as a means to communicate. And context is very important in facilitating this type of communication. Now, these are two grammar items that students at a pre-intermediate level deal with quite quickly. I think it's the first unit. There's the present simple and the present simple using adverbs and expressions of frequency, right? Very straightforward. This is not complicated, but my question for you is the following. I want you to think of a real life situation in which we would use these two grammatical forms, and try to be as specific as you can. You know, where would we use them? With whom would we use them? What would be the outcome of that real life situation? Take a moment to think, and I invite you to share in the chat box. When would we use present simple, adverbs and expressions of frequency as language users outside of the classroom? In what situation? We've got one of the answers, daily routine. Excellent. And when would we talk? With whom would we talk about daily routine? Even more specific. With classmates, okay. What would be the outcome of that in school, in formal situations? What kind of situation? Telling a friend what you do daily. Introducing ourselves, good. Ah, there you go. Zainab had a very good idea. Speaking to parents. Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, regular conversations. One of the activities that we did with this particular one, present simple adverbs and adverbs of frequency, one context that I always loved was trying to find someone to go on vacation with and seeing if your daily routines matched. Because, you know, when you go with someone on vacation, you don't want to have someone who wakes up very early in the morning and someone who wakes up really late. So they were exchanging daily routines to see like who they're more compatible with when they go on holiday or on vacation. Yeah. Oh, very good. Informal discussions when a science teacher teaches scientific facts. Exactly. So the more specific you are with your context, the more interesting and you can start, your lesson will be, and you can start building a narrative and you can start thinking, okay, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. When would my students use this? Talking to parents, I think someone was saying earlier. Yes, like, what's your day like at school? Well, we usually start with this, then we move on to that, and so on. Excellent. Now, as I said, the more specific you are when it comes to context, the advantage of that is that identifying a clear context helps you design better practice activities. So it really, really helps you design more what we call communicative practice activities. And we talk a lot about in CLT and in ELT about communicative practice. And a lot of people seem to think that communicative practice is just speaking. Like if our students speak, then we can tick the communication box. We can say, okay, good, this activity has been communicative. But actually, it's not like that at all. The fact that it's a speaking task is only part of what a truly good communicative practice task is. Now, if we were to describe a truly communicative practice, we would say that it is productive, that it is generative, that it is personalized, that it is purposeful, and that it is contextualized. So all of these 5 characteristics, these make up a communicative practice. And your question now may be, all right, but what does that mean? Well, that is my question to you. What do you think it means for a communicative practice activity to be productive, to be generative, to be personalized, to be purposeful, and contextualized? What makes, what does that mean exactly? Have a go at it, and I'll be waiting for your answers in the chat box. What does it mean to be productive, to be generative, to be personalized, purposeful, and contextualized? And I'll share my answers with you as well. Any ideas? Okay. Students can produce the language. Written form or spoken form? Speaking does take the spotlight quite a lot in communicative language teaching, but written form, we call this the forgotten skill of ELT, still productive. Relatable, very good, very good. Practice using the language, yes. So we've got relatable, productive, making use of the language. Excellent. And you are right. So basically, productive, it helps learners produce the language, whether in spoken or a written form. A communicative practice activity doesn't have to be speaking all the time. Generally is, but it can be written as well. When we talk about practice, we talk about practice of target language, of a specific item of language, whether it is grammar or lexis or functional language. So a communicative practice would have to be generative. It would have to generate the target language. So for example, if we're practicing present simple and adverbs of frequency, our communicative practice task should generate present simple and adverbs of frequency. So our students would have to use these two as much as possible. Personalized means that it encourages learners to talk about themselves, right? I think some of you said relatable, meaningful. So it's about the learners, something about the learner's life. Purposeful, this is very important. I think number 4 and number 5 are often forgotten. A purposeful communicative practice is one where there is an outcome. There is a reason why the students are doing this. That is not because the teacher told them to. So the speakers have a reason to speak and the listeners have a reason to listen. So there is an outcome that both the speaker and the listener, or the writer and the reader, have a goal that they have to work towards. It's not just talk to your partner. Why are you talking to your partner? What's the purpose of that? What's the outcome of that? It has to be, otherwise it's just a normal speaking task, but it's not necessarily very communicative. Communicative practice means that there is an outcome, there is a solution that we have to work towards. This is a very important distinction. And lastly, it is contextualized. So whatever that outcome is, it replicates a real life situation, something that they would do outside of the classroom with the language, right? Something that they would need in a real life situation outside of the classroom. So you will notice, and I will showcase that to you, in course books, most communicative practice tasks, well, practice tasks that call themselves communicative, are productive, are generative, are personalized, but they are not very purposeful and they are not contextualized, which means that they are not truly communicative. The communicative adjective can only be given to a task if it meets all of these criteria. So this is what, remember our present simple and adverbs of frequency lesson. This is the practice that the course book has to offer. So in exercise 8, students are encouraged to discuss the questions. Then in exercises 12 and 13, this is basically the same task, but it's broken down into two. In one step, they have to create a survey, how healthy you are for another group. And in the next step, they have to interview the people in the other groups. So we'll take each of these activities one at a time. And my question to you, look at this task. What time do people normally get up? How does this change during the year? Do people sleep longer in the summer or in the winter? These are discussion questions. If we take this task and we run it through our scheme, would we say that it is productive? Would we say that it is generative? Would we say that it is personalized, purposeful, and contextualized? Now, productive, obviously through the nature of it, it will be, because it will generate language, spoken language. Is it generative? Will it generate present simple or and adverbs of frequency? When students answer these questions, will it generate that target language? What do you think? Yep. Nay says it is generative. Yes. Sharif has already answered the second one as well. So it is generative. It will generate. Now, think about this like this. Any task that is that encourages communication will generate some language. Will it generate the target language that we are expecting? Possibly. Yeah, most, I would say 80% it will. They have to use the present simple. Not quite sure if they use the adverbs of frequency. They might need some guidance there, but definitely they will use the present simple through the nature of the task, because that we can't use any other tense here. And it is personalized. They like talking about themselves, agreed. So it checks this one. It is productive, it is generative, it is personalized. Is it purposeful? Is it there an outcome to this? Is there a reason for, will the listener, the person who is listening, do something with this information that they're receiving from their partner? Yes, no, what do you think? Someone saying yes, they compare their routine, getting to know each other. Exactly, like someone said, the students will probably not be aware of it. There is no purpose to this, because we say usually they will agree or disagree with each other. That's fine, but if we want to make it purposeful, they would have to agree, or they would have to reach an agreement, or they would have to do something with this. Getting to know each other, absolutely, but it's not in the rubric. Students are not aware of it. Often the teacher is not aware of it. So basically, this task is not purposeful at all. And most tasks, most discussion questions, yes, they're productive, yes, they're generative, yes, they're personalized, but they're not truly communicative, because there is no outcome to it. So there is no purpose to it, right? There's nothing that they will do with this. If we say, okay, guys, now write a report on habits, on sleeping habits, or make a presentation on the sleeping habits in your own cultures or in your own countries, or you're taking part in a survey, then that would be a little bit more purposeful. And because it's not purposeful, it's not really contextualized. Now have a think. Outside of a getting to know you activity, when in real life would we be talking about sleeping habits? And yeah, maybe we can think of an idea. Maybe we can think of, yes, we're talking to someone we've just met from a different country, but that context is not set in the rubric of this exercise. It is not specifically mentioned. We cannot see it here. They're just discuss the questions. There's no setting of the scene, if you will, right? So it is not purposeful. It is not contextualized. If you say, okay, now you are at a UN meeting and you're talking to someone sitting next to you and you want to find out more about, then that would be a little bit more contextualized. Now, compare this, keep this in mind with, with the next activity. So this time, students work in groups, prepare a how healthy you are quiz for another group. Obviously, this will be productive because it's also productive on two levels. Writing, they have to create a quiz, and speaking, they have to interview each other. It will be generative. They will probably use not only the present simple, but also the adverbs of frequency because they have very targeted questions. How often do you ever, etc. Personalized, yes, because it is about themselves. It's about their healthy habits. Purposeful, yes, because if you look here, join another group, ask the questions in your quiz. Afterwards, tell the class about the answers. Do you think the other group is very healthy? So they are using this information for something, for a task. They have to make a decision. Who is the healthiest group? Is it contextualized? I thought about this quite a lot, and I think it is. And I asked myself the question, when in real life would I be interviewed about my health habits? And I could think of two situations. One, when you're going to the doctor for the first time, you have to fill in a quiz and like, how often do you do this? How often do you do that? So that's something that students will encounter in real life. And also, if you're like me, I love doing quizzes online, like those BuzzFeed quizzes, like how healthy are you, or what's the best diet for you, or things like that. So this is something that happens to students in real life. And then the interest level increases, the motivation, the engagement increases. This is arguably a more communicative and a more useful task for the students than the previous one because it ticks the last two items. It is purposeful and it is contextualized. Right. So now we've sort of migrated to our last pit stop, and we're going to be looking at how context is dealt with in course books, and not just context, but topic as well. So I'm going to present to you a lesson, again, from Life Pre-Intermediate. If you've used this course book, you may be familiar. It's one of the first lessons in the book. It starts very nicely with a listening activity. It's about journalist David, who's been living in Sardinia and interviewing the people there on their lifestyle. He's interested in things like slow food, work-life balance, and is there any difference in terms of generations, in terms of eating healthy and staying healthy. So you've got the listening bit. The students are exposed to the context. They're developing their listening skills. Then what the book does, very straightforward, it takes some of the sentences from the listening and from the interview, and it encourages the students to notice the target language. Which two sentences use the present simple tense and why? And then we have an activity where the students are encouraged to look at the other sentences that are in the present continuous form, and they have a matching activity where they have to match the use of the present continuous with the sentences from the text. Straightforward clarification. And here comes the practice. Now, the book offers two practice activities. One of them is this. It's a straightforward gap fill where the students are asked to complete either with present simple or with present continuous. And then the final activity, they work in pairs. They take turns to ask and answer questions, and they use the present simple and present continuous. So this is a pretty straightforward lesson, all good. In terms of staging, it's perfect. However, I have a question for you. Remember our discussion, topic versus context. What is the topic of this lesson? What do you think? What is the topic of this lesson? Leisure activities. Yes, possibly. Any other ideas? Hobbies? Present simple versus present continuous would be kind of like the grammar topic, but I'm talking about topic in terms of content. Lifestyle in Sardinia. So you see, the fact that you're giving different answers, it means that there isn't really a cohesive topic throughout the lesson. It starts with lifestyle in Sardinia, then it moves to leisure activities, and then it moves to hobbies. So there isn't a cohesive topic throughout the lesson. And this is one of the faults of course books. Course books start with a topic. Like if you look at 6, 7, 8, and 9, they are all about lifestyle in Sardinia. But if you look at 10 and 11 at the practice activities, it switches from the topic of lifestyle to hobbies and leisure activities, which are not really the same. Now, Life does a better job of at least keeping the topics within the same area. But you have certain course books where you talk about lifestyle, and then, I don't know, in the practice activities is something completely random. And that is a problem that course books have. They do not keep. So basically, a lesson that is memorable should be throughout it. We start with lifestyle in a particular place. We finish with lifestyle in a certain place. Yeah. So the topic is not kept throughout. And my next question is, does this lesson have a clear context? What is the real life situation they are trying to replicate? Is that clear from the lesson that you have here? Absolutely. It's not. It's not clear at all what the context is. And that is one fault, again, in the course books that prefer these type of activities, the speaking activities that, yes, they're generative, they are productive, they are personalized, students talk about themselves. They are not truly communicative because they are not purposeful and they are not contextualized. Now, if we look at the practice for present simple and present continuous, they have some, what's your typical working day? It's not even about leisure activities anymore. It's not even about hobbies. Then it moves to hobbies. Do you often read novels? Are you reading anything interesting at the moment? Where do you normally go on holiday? Do you speak any other languages? So there's absolutely no cohesion in terms of topic here. We've abandoned lifestyle and we've just put in things that are roughly related, but there's no topic linking all of these together. So we can say about this that it is productive, yes, it's a speaking activity. Is generative, yes, it will generate present simple and present continuous. Is it personalized? Yes, students talk about themselves. Is it purposeful? No, they do nothing with this information. There is no reason for the listener, for myself, to listen to the other person who's talking, other than the fact that the teacher told me to, and I'm nice and I want to listen to what they're saying. This is why sometimes activities like this are hit and miss. If you have a group that get along well and are very chatty, yeah, you can give them this activity and they will do it and it will be successful. But if you have a group that's less motivated or more disruptive, sometimes these types of activities aren't very useful for them because they're not engaged. They don't see any point in listening to it. And it's fair enough. There's no purpose, there's no outcome to this. And it's not contextualized. When would you in real life go through all of these 5 questions? I mean, yes, maybe in a conversation with a friend, but that is a bit of a stretch to move from typical working day to reading novels to what do you do on holiday and things like that. It's just not very realistic if we think about it very carefully. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the key now is the following. What can we do to make this task more communicative? So what can we do to make this task more purposeful and more contextualized? So I'm interested, because I've got a bit more time. I'm interested in your ideas. What would you do to adapt this task to make it, we already know that it's productive. We already know that it's generative. We already know that it's personalized. How can we make this more purposeful and more contextualized? Any ideas? Activity-based. Okay, good. A next step. Excellent. Brilliant. The easiest way to make this more purposeful, here's a tip for you, is to get students to agree on 3 things that they have in common. So let them do this task and say, okay, at the end of the task, I want you to see how many things, or find 3 things that you have in common with the person, with your partner. Yeah? That's the easiest way to make a task more purposeful. All right. Okay, you've talked about this. Now, what are 3 things that you have in common, or 2 things, or how many things have you got in common? If we want to make it more contextualized, you can say, all right, I don't know, you're out with your friend and you haven't seen each other since high school, right? Or you haven't seen each other since middle school. Have a conversation. What are some topics that you would like to discuss? What's the most interesting thing that you would that you found out from your partner? So try to bring it in a little bit of a narrative. And one thing that I did to make to make these tasks more communicative is, remember this lesson. This is a task from a lesson that it's about lifestyle in Sardinia. So what I got my students to do is actually interview each other. Okay, we found out about lifestyle in Sardinia. Let's find out about lifestyle in your own countries. So what we did is I gave them some topics like working day, spend your free time, novels, holiday, languages, and so on, learning languages, hobbies, and things like that. And I said, okay, now come up with a list of 5 questions that you would ask someone if you wanted to know more about their lifestyle. The benefit of that is that it also included an element of autonomy in the learners. Yeah. So students compare their lives to the one in the text. Exactly. They investigate, they can ask these questions, say, okay, now with this information, compare it with what you learned from the text. And that makes it more contextualized because they are, it's a real life task. We often compare, how is life in Kuwait versus how is life in Romania? I'm interested in that. Yeah. And I'm comparing, I'm not just talking about myself, but I am learning and using the information that I had previously. And it's purposeful because there's an outcome, there's a comparison, there are some points to be made. This is similar, this is different. And this is how we make a task more purposeful and more contextualized. Right. So let me just clear all that up so that we can move on to the next bit. Right. So our itinerary today took us through an investigation of context versus topic. We looked at why context is important for meaningful communication, and we looked at how context is dealt with or not dealt with in course books. I think we've got a couple more minutes. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. So you can just type them out in the chat box, and I'm happy to answer if you have any questions.
Okay, before you start, I'm going to type in the link for those people who want an attendance certificate. Here it is. It will not be repeated several times, guys. You need to get it during this presentation. Telling us later that you were here, but you didn't get it. Unfortunately, we won't be able to help you. Can everyone see in the chat box?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, that is for your certificate. I'll do it one last time after Miss Julie wraps up her presentation. Okay, back to you, Miss Julie.
All right, so if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. If not, or if you think of questions later on, like, damn, I missed the chance to ask Julie. You can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm happy to keep in touch with you there as well. So for any questions about English language teaching, communicative language teaching, and teacher training, more than happy to be of help to you. So I hope that you've had, hope this has been an interesting exploration of context versus a topic. So thank you very much for your ideas, and thank you very much for your participation. It was really nice.
Thank you so much. I see there aren't any questions. You have covered everything. It was really, really interesting. For the person who said you could not download the certificate, I checked out the link. It does work. I don't know why. It's maybe a bit slow, but again, here is the link. And as I said, I did use it. If you need to copy, Iman Yusuf said that the link worked with her. So please use it. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to also, again, this, as I say, this week we will have our ad up for the November 5th mini conference, and you'll be able to find go to Instagram, you'll be able to find the link in the bio. But if you want to get a jump on it, this is the link to register for the mini conference. Okay, if you're attending virtually. Okay, I want to again thank you all so much for attending. Thank you, Julie, for you reminded me of stuff, that we know that we should be doing, but sometimes we forget. And
exactly.
So thank you. A wonderful presentation. Now,
Thank you so much, Anne.
This presentation is being recorded and it will be uploaded to TESOL Kuwait's YouTube page. Also, there will be a link on the TESOL Kuwait page that shows the webinars. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all either virtually or in person on the 5th of November at the mini conference. And on the 13th, which is the 5th is a Friday, the 13th is a Saturday for our next webinar. So thank you again. So good to see you all. I'm going
Thank
to
you so much, guys.
I'm going to end the session. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.